Okay, guys, so we are about to begin the clapper box. I have it almost completely finished over here on the left. I think I'm missing a couple dimensions. I need to dimension this whole. I'm going to utilize this center line, but I'll start a new vertical construction line. And get started from there. Okay, so the one of the first things you notice on the dimensions that they give us is they gave us the overall size, 7.5 by 4.5. So those are pretty obvious offsets to do. From the center going up is 2.25 and down 2.25. So we'll do that one. 2.25 from the center up and from the center down. And then from the one edge across to the other side, it's 7.5. So there's that. Okay. The next really defining characteristic is these arcing sides. And we are given their radius as 5.5, which means from the edge where the arc makes contact, it's 5.5 inches over to the center. So if we offset that distance, 5.5 on both, you get the center of the arcs. So these are the arc center lines right here. If you use some pretty basic math, you can also figure out that those happen to be 2 inches over from the edge. So you could just offset the edges 2 inches if you'd rather. At this point, I'd like to just do the basic outline. So let's do that. To do the basic outline, I need the arcs. I'm going to go to my object layer, and I could use the arc command. You know, we never do that. We always use the circle command and then trim, which I like doing a lot. For example, here it is, clicking with the circle command and just going to the edge and then trimming off. That's it. And then just delete what you don't want. It's pretty simple doing it that way. Using the arc command, you have to pick the one you want here. There's a lot of options. Start, center, end. So if we do that one, here's the start, here's the center, and there's the end. Oops. That wasn't right. See, that didn't work. Because actually, I don't have the start and stop point. I have the midpoint of the arc. So if you did it like that, you would then have to move it from there to there, which is not a big deal. But anyway, I know. Your choice. Okay, and then we'll connect them. All right. Next real defining characteristic is the arced slot, this guy here. And if you do it the way they have it dimensioned, it's a bit of a nightmare. They give us the outer limits here. Basically, they give us this dimension from this point to this point here. There it is, 3.25. And I had to do that to create the arc because that's the only thing I had. But the truth is that's a really bizarre way of dimensioning it. A much more easy way to dimension it and build it is giving us the arc length between its centers, which is 34 degrees, or half of that would be 17 degrees from center. So that's a good way to do it. To make a 17-degree construction line and a negative 17-degree construction line, which is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go to my construction layer and I'm going to type XL, enter A, enter, and then negative 17. And I'm going to run it through this point right here because that's its center. That was given to us. And then I'm going to do the opposite and say XL, enter, A, enter, positive 17, and click here. So that is the swing of the arc. There it is, right there. And now I need its center line. Its center line is 4.5 inches radius. So I think I'll just use the center line layer to do that. And the R. So I'm going to just do a circle, C, enter, and then the radius is 4.5. Okay. Now I've got its midpoint. I can offset its thickness, which is given as 5/8. So it, from the center out is 5/16. So O, enter, 5/16. And I can just make those object lines and trim them away. Okay, and now we just need the circle on the end or the arc on the end. Again, if you want to do the arc, actually this is probably a pretty good time to do the arc. That same one, start, center, end, because we know for sure the start, we know the center, and we know the end. There it is. Wrong layer. One more time, click that arc button. We know the start, we know the center, and we know the end. You could have also done it with the circle command by simply clicking on the center point and dragging out to the edge, and then trimming away that bit. Either way. Okay. Speaking of circles, how about these guys? The inside one is given us as a 1-inch hole. And then the counter bore, slightly larger portion, is 1.5-inch diameter or 0.75 radius. Okay. The next feature is these sides, and they are 13/16 thick. So we will offset 13/16 this line down, and then it will offset the chamfer, which is 3/16. Okay. And then we'll offset the distance over from the edge, how long these guys are, which is 4.5. So this line here needs to go over 4.5. So the most right line needs to come over 4.5 inches. There it is. And now we have what we need to make these guys. So they go from here to there to there. And then the chamfer is visible from there to there. Excellent. I'm just going to mirror the other side once I get this hole done. So the hole is 3/4 from the edge. So the offset is 0.75 from here to here. And its diameter is 1/2 inch. Its radius 0.25. So we'll offset 0.25 both sides. There you go. Since we're offsetting 0.25, let's do some dimension work here with that, because, you know, you're going to need that, right? It helps to have those 1/4 inch dimensions floating around. Okay, we'll go to our hidden layer, draw the edges of this hole, and then the center line for it. Okay, and then we'll mirror it. MI enter. About the center. Awesome. So I believe that is it for the our main view, our front view. The top view, it's interesting. It looks kind of like it's upside down. It may have been better to do the bottom view. It may have been more logical, but whatever. So for this top view, I am going to offset this thing a couple inches, give me some space for dimensioning. So 2 inch away from the edge, there's my first line. And then I'll do that again because that's how thick it is. Another 2 inches. The thickness of the base is 0.625. So we'll offset that top line 0.625 down. The thickness of the chamfer, again, is 3/16. So let's do that one. And the distance from the edge to the center of that hole, from the top, well, depending on your reference, you can see it's 625 from this to that. So let's do that. From this line up, 0.625. Okay. I think we have, we've got almost enough. You know, we need to put the vertical lines in for this hole for sure. We also need to put in the vertical lines at these points of intersection. We're going to need those. So we'll do that now. And the slot too. Okay. All right, so we got quite a few vertical construction lines to do. Let's just start on this side and work our way. So we're going to need this most outer one. We're going to need the midpoint of the arcs, and we're going to need the most inner one, which should be right there. And then for these guys, we're going to need their quadrants. And then for this arc, we're going to need this point, and this point. Make sure I got those correctly. Yes, those are the points we're after. Okay. All right, so we'll go to our object layer. You can see how this is going to work out. This is basically a rectangle. The base is pretty much just a rectangle. And then it scoots on over. This face right here gets a little tricky. The most obvious thing to think is that it would just do this kind of thing right here. Oops. That's the the basic shape. So this face in here, right there, is an arcing face. And we would definitely see this corner coming all the way down if there wasn't a bevel. If there was no bevel, that would be that right there. We would be done. But there is a bevel, and the bevel makes it a little tricky because the bevel goes across the flat face, but it goes into the angled face a little bit. How much does it go in? Let's zoom in on that. Well, that's off. Not sure what's happening here. Let me draw that line again. It goes to there. So rather than going straight down, it eats into that angled face a little bit. So this guy actually goes away. So that's what it would look like. And you will get a sense of that if you look on the isometric view that we were giving, and that we will have to draw as well. Okay. Going well. Got some hidden lines to do. Got this hole to do. Let's do the hole. Got it center to its edge. Boom. Okay. Object lines are done. Hidden lines. Of course, this whole edge that's being hidden by this wall, and that goes all the way across. And we're going to have this hole and counter bore. So if it was just a straight hole, we'd have this two lines, but because it's a counter bore, we got to show the part that goes in a ways, as you can see here. I want to need that offset. That offset thickness, or the depth of the counter bore, is 5/16. So let's offset that line. So this guy down 5/16. So that right there is the counter bore that I just made. And then this is the hole continuing all the way through. And lastly, this arc. So the arc in the side view, it's kind of a weird thing. Basically, you got to just show the extremes. So that's the extreme edge on one side, and this is the extreme edge on the other side. And then we also note center lines. So where are the centers of the arc? And we already did that. It's this line here. So it's weird because they're off center, but that's the deal. Okay. And the center line going through the arc itself, as you can see, is just that 4.5-inch radius that we made. And then you would dimension to it using the arc measuring, angular measuring dimension. Do note that I did give it its size by specifying its radius and specifying that they were both the same radius on both sides, because there are arcs that are tapered, but this one is not. Okay, so the remaining view is this front view. And you can see that I did a transfer line here, which I will do again. So 45-degree construction line for that purpose, not a center line, construction line, or an object line, whatever turns you on. Oops. Trim that out of the way. Get rid of that one. And bounce these lines down. I'm going to get rid of these. And remember, you can trim this stuff away if you want using the TR cutting edge method. Pick that as your cutting edge, and then you can just trim this stuff away to it. It's pretty cool when you do that. Okay, this should go pretty fast. This is our chamfer right here. We'll start with that. Chamfer, and then down. Not quite that far. So that is your basic object line outline. And then we'll go to our hidden lines. Extend these guys through. We got the hole to do. You could redraw this hole, or you could do a rotate and copy. I'm going to do that just for fun. So let's show you the rotate command. RO, enter. I'm going to select this stuff here. Enter. And then it says specify the base point. I'm going to click in the middle of this circle. Okay. The rotation angle is going to be this away, right? So that's negative direction. I think you can just snap to it if you want. See how it's, I can click on this line. That works. But note that there's no copy being left behind. Look at that. The original is gone. So if you want to copy, you got to click copy. And now when I click on this line, there you go. Look at that. The alignment of those is, it's close. That's just a coincidence. This thing could have been inches away because where I put these vertical lines was just kind of random. My next step was to move this. I didn't have to move it very far, just from there to there. But seriously, that was a total coincidence. I mean, it could have been out here. I had no idea where it was going to end up. All I knew is that it was going to be on the center line, and then it would be very easy to grab it by one of its endpoints and just drag it straight across to where it goes. Anyway, just a fun little tidbit there. The big thing I wanted to show you actually is that rotate command that that when you're rotating and you want it to make a copy, in other words, leave the original behind, that's not the default. You have to tell it. You have to click copy to get it to do that. Okay, what's left? This hole right here, which is a copy of that. So all I got to do is copy copy one of these here. It's the exact same thing, and just go from center to center. I think I'll just click on that center point right there and drop it right there and put one right there. The edges of the slot and the centers in this view. So I need to mark those. And I hadn't quite finished this when we started, so I hadn't done that yet. but its edges, let's do that right now. I'm going to copy one of these, or just make a new construction line. XL, enter, H, enter, and I'm going to go to the highest point, which is here, and then to its center. All right, so the highest point, and then its center line, because that's what we need to mark, just like we did here, the most outlying points and then the center lines. So the centers we just did are these guys here. So that's going to be from there to there. Stick out 1/4 of an inch, please. And then the hidden line. So the most outlying edge, which is here. Okay. And if you want, you could mirror that. You could have mirrored the entire thing because it is symmetrical. And of course, center lines and dimensions remain.